everybody. It's great to be back in Ames, Iowa here. In Congress, I'd like to announce that I'm not going to run this. What do we got, kids? What do we got?
Talk about the atmosphere 2 years ago in 2019 and what you're expecting tomorrow.
It was a tremendous atmosphere. I mean, this is a great tailgating scene. Got great loyal fans. So it was a memorable day for sure. Our director, Rodney Perez, got to fire off a cannon, and anytime he gets to do that, he's a happy guy. So we're anticipating a lot of energy and excitement because I think it's a really important milestone game. It always is, but I think particularly for Iowa State, because as good as they have been and as good as the program is, you need to beat your rival. And I think it can really elevate their stature and give them you don't come home where you can win championships, but you need to beat your rival. And I think it's a really important game for them. I think that the energy will reflect that on Saturday.
Beyond what you do every week, is there anything that makes a really good show for you? Something that sets it apart from maybe the normal weekly show?
I mean, this is going to sound self-evident, but the crowd. I mean, we prepare, to sound like a coach here, we prepare the same no matter whether we are in an empty stadium as we were last year or whether we're in Pullman, Washington, where we had the greatest crowd we've ever had. And we hope that this crowd will eclipse that tomorrow. That would be great. But when you go out, or even last week at a neutral site, which are notoriously difficult scenes sometimes in terms of energy and atmosphere, and see just an unbelievable response from the fans, from the Georgia and Clemson fans last week, I mean, it gives you a little jolt of energy. I hope it doesn't make you do your job better, but it does. It does let you feel some adrenaline, and I think it's not dissimilar from what the players will be facing playing in front of a crowd for the first time in quite some time, as they did last week, and for the Iowa kids coming in here and playing in a hostile environment. In many cases, Spencer Peaches, for instance, playing for the first time. So there's a little extra juice that gets going when you have a great crowd, and I think that's a big part of it.
What do you make of realignments, more specifically what we see with the Big 12 announcement today, adding those 4 schools?
I think it's making the best of a difficult situation. Those 4 schools that they're adding are really good programs, and a couple of them, UCF particularly, with a huge enrollment and burgeoning alumni base that they're getting from that over the years, has an incredible ceiling. Cincinnati, I think, does also, and I think Houston and BYU are certainly, Big 12's already in the Texas market, but it gives you another brand name with some history in the Texas market, and BYU has a very loyal following. That said, I'm not going to sit here and be disingenuous and tell you that it is the same, because it is not. It is sort of like it's a lighter version of the Big 12, or maybe a turboed up version of the American, which is not a bad thing. I'm not being insulting when I say that. It's because you've got a lot of really, really good in this new alignment with this new group, these new 12, a lot of really good, but you haven't got anything in there that's proven to be consistently great. Maybe that provides an opportunity. Maybe that lets Iowa State to take it to, I mean, they're already at a really good level. Maybe they take it to another level. Maybe that allows UCF and Cincinnati not to have to answer the questions of, well, you have all of these programs that you beat that aren't quite to the level of the Power 5. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I think it's just as good, but I do think it's making the best of a difficult situation.
How important is it for Rece Hall to have a good game tomorrow? National TV, the national spotlight will be there.
In terms of winning the game, or in terms of being a Heisman Trophy
in terms
candidate,
of his personal goals, and I know his team goals far outweigh that.
Right, sure. Yeah. Look, you have the only top 10 game in the sport tomorrow, the only matchup of top 10 opponents. If a guy like Rece Hall, who led the nation rushing last year, can come out and go against the defense that was in 23 games now, they haven't allowed more than 24 points, and he puts a big number on a notoriously tough run defense, and they win the game, he can certainly elevate his stature. I don't think there's any question about it. And I think from that standpoint, for his personal goals, it's really important. He'll have other opportunities. When they play Oklahoma, when they if Texas is as good as perhaps it looked last week against a good team. If they're that good, there'll be other opportunities. So it's not be all end all, but it's certainly a really important jumping off point if he has for those types of personal goals.
What did you learn about this rivalry 2 years ago coming to Ames that you knew Iowa State peripherally, but to be here for game day and feeling the atmosphere and understanding how soaked in the wool the rivalry is around here? What did you learn about it?
It's very much like the other in-state rivalries where the perception is, whether it's real or not, the perception is there's the school of business people, and then there's the more agricultural side. There's the feeling of one side looks down on the other, whether that's true or not. That's the perception, and I think it gives you a great intensity to the rivalry. And I think that even though they're in different conferences, which makes it a little bit different than some of the other in-state rivalries, you know that this game, even though it's played in September, and there are other goals to pursue, that this one is really important. Iowa wants desperately to keep Iowa State where they perceive their play should be, which is they can be good, just not as good as us. That's what they want. And Iowa State fans, I think look at this as a proving ground, and rightfully so. That's when a rivalry, and Iowa State has won. They've won some games, and they've broken hearts over the years at times too. But as we stand right here where we are in this era, Matt Campbell era, one of the brightest young coaches, one of the best coaches. I think he doesn't have to be the brightest young coach, one of the brightest coaches, period, in the game. They need to win. They need to win the game. And, I think sometimes when we cover college football, we feel like we're afraid we're being insulting when we say that. Or when you say they need to take the next step, that you're somehow diminishing what has already been accomplished. That's not it. It's really a compliment. You're saying they're really good, and now here's what they need to do to be even better. And so I think that I've learned, or had reinforced, maybe it's a better way to put it, had reinforced the significance and the importance of it to both sides.
Who are you most excited to see play in person tomorrow?
Oh man, there are a ton. I like the pass rushers, so Will McDonald, I'm looking forward to seeing him play. Obviously, I haven't seen Breece Hall play in person, so I'm looking forward to seeing him up close and personal. So those are a couple of guys that I'm really looking forward to playing. I think all of those guys in the Iowa secondary are really good. Obviously, Moss had the 2 pick sixes. Kerner's good, so I'm looking forward to seeing those guys. And now also I want to see how Petras handles himself in this environment too. I think because it's always a bit of a measuring stick for a quarterback.
Rece, had the playoff expanded earlier, Iowa and Iowa State would have both had their shot in the past 6 years to be in the playoff. Are you personally in favor of a 12-team playoff, which would include 4 teams getting a bye, and of course fatigue would play a role there in the second round, or are you more in favor of an 8 or 16-team playoff? Not 16.
16's way too many for right now, in my judgment. But and I have great hesitancy about 12 because of the issues that you mentioned. I think a situation where every team played the same number of games, because anytime you roll an extra game out there, it was like when people say, the example I've always used is, look at the 2010 Auburn team that won the national championship, right? Let's say there was a 16-team playoff, and in the first round, 1 versus 16, let's say Auburn played Troy or whoever, if you were giving a bunch of automatic bids, and Cam Newton sprained his ankle, couldn't play, high ankle sprain out 2 weeks. Why? I like the fact that it's hard to get into the playoff. We are probably close to the time where the appetite has gotten to the point where we need to expand some, but we need to be judicious in how we expand. I've heard all of this stuff about all of these conference champions getting automatic bids, or the highest ranked conference champions. There needs to be a threshold, or you've got to reconfigure and play your championship game the way the Big 12 does, where you have the 2 best teams. Because if you don't, I know it didn't happen, but you had a year, I think 3 years ago, where you had Northwestern, who had lost all of its non-conference games. You had Pittsburgh, who I think had 4 or 5 losses. And there was one more, but you had 3 teams in conference championship games that had no business being in the playoff based on what they had done the whole season. well, a ball bounces off a tuba. You know, a guy falls down at the wrong time. You have this major upset, and all of a sudden you put him in the playoffs. I like the idea of the best teams, or if you're going to insist on these automatic bids for conference champions, there has to be a threshold. Whether that's a certain ranking by the selection committee, whether that's revamping the way you decide who plays in your conference championship game, whatever it is, you can't have 5 lost teams 1 game away from the playoff. You can't. It's not good for the sport. And I know people say, oh, you know, the Giants got in the Super Bowl. There are only 30 teams.
Okay.
You know, and it's different in the NFL. And so I don't buy that. You've got to have a threshold that the champions must meet, or you've got to make sure. And I say, you know what, you probably still have to have it, because if you get a conference championship game between 2 4-loss teams, why should they have an automatic
Right.
bid? You know, so I think a threshold's the way to go. Other than that, I don't have any opinion on this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rece.
All right. See you guys.